What's up, everybody? My name is Jericholic8704 here, back to give you another installment of Raw as Jericholic8704. This week we have Raw from June 6, 2004, emanating from Albany, New York. This Raw was significantly better than last week's debacle of a show. We had a promo from Stacy Keibler, who basically her whole purpose here was to do her little slow-mo entrance where she gets into the ring, and then to announce that the Raw Divas search, there was only one day left. It was Tuesday at midnight. That was the final hour to submit any audition, any headshot, any whatever you needed to submit for the Raw Diva search. So she does her little slow-mo entrance again. King is going nuts, and then all of a sudden Gail Kim enters the ring and basically tells Stacy to fuck off because she's about to wrestle. Because Gail Kim, as you know, is the #1 contender heading into Bad Blood. So our opening match is Gail Kim versus Lita. They had a perfectly fine, perfectly average wrestling match. It was actually pretty good for what it was. They didn't get a lot of time, but it was actually pretty nice. It was a simple story. Gail Kim attacked the knee of Lita, and she kind of worked it over. She threw it into the post and everything. Lita hit an enziguri for a near fall, and that kind of set up her comeback. She goes for an inside cradle, and Gail Kim kicks out, and then Gail Kim hits something. I don't know what this was. I think it was an inverted Indian deathlock. If I had to guess what this submission was, because I mean, Gail Kim in the early 2000s when she first came to Raw, her gimmick, in a sense, if you want to call it that, I mean, she had like the Matrix persona thing, but her whole gimmick was she had really wacky, really over-the-top submission moves, and this was one of them, and it looked cool. I mean, I'm not knocking it, but if I could describe it in any way, I would say an inverted Indian deathlock, because that was the first move that came to my mind. But the problem was Lita was on her stomach and Gail Kim was on her back. And as far as I know, it's supposed to be both wrestlers are supposed to be on their back, but I might have that mixed up. Maybe it wasn't an Indian deathlock, but who knows? So eventually Lita works her way out, and then she hits her with her big DDT. She dropped her right on her head. It was pretty impressive. So she dropped Gail Kim right on her head for the win. Now, in hindsight, I don't really mind this because I knew that the Fatal 4-Way at Bad Blood was about to be made. I knew that, having watched Bad Blood so many times, that Bad Blood 2004 featured a Fatal 4-Way between Victoria, Gail Kim, Trish, and Lita. But as of right now, it was Gail Kim versus Victoria for the Women's Championship. So if you were a viewer on June 6, 2004 watching this Raw, you would think, why the hell was the #1 contender beat by someone who's not even on the pay-per-view, someone who doesn't even benefit from this win? Obviously, our questions were answered, so I didn't fly off the rail when I saw this because I knew deep down that it was going to make sense in the end. So then we had a backstage segment with Coach, Bischoff, and Nitro. Bischoff says that Coach is undefeated on pay-per-view, and because of that, he's going to be facing Eugene this Sunday at Bad Blood. Something else I want to mention. They made like 4 matches for Bad Blood. I think going into this was the go-home for Bad Blood 2004, and I think going into this match, we had Benjamin and Orton for the Intercontinental Championship. Benoit, I'm sorry, not Benoit, take 2. We had Orton and Benjamin for the Intercontinental Championship. Benoit and Kane for the World Championship, and then the Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels and HBK. Now, granted, those are your 3 main events. So I guess at the end of the day, it's fine that those are the only 3 matches going in. I mean, looking at the past Raws, you could probably assume there was going to be a tag team title rematch. Jericho was going to face Tomko. There was the women's title match. Now, the women's title match was set in stone, but that was changed pretty drastically. And then you have Coach and Eugene. So I guess at the end of the day, my complaint that, they booked 4 matches on the go-home show isn't that big of a deal because we kind of saw it coming. I mean, like, hell, look at WrestleMania 32. Like, they booked Jericho and AJ on the go-home to WrestleMania 32. I think that's how they did it. And I mean, we knew a mile away that match was coming. So I guess at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. I was about to complain, but I really don't think there is any need to. And I mean, I think this is more of the brand split talking. When you have a thinner roster, you kind of have to just book your big matches in advance, and really, you don't have to build up the entire pay-per-view. You can kind of just sell it on 2 or 3 big matches. Now, granted, that's kind of what wrestling is. With the exception of WrestleMania and maybe SummerSlam, I don't think a pay-per-view is supposed to have, so many like big time matches. You're supposed to have your 1 big main event, your 2 or 3 semi-main events, and then undercard matches, which at the end of the day are supposed to just be matches. Sometimes you can get away, especially when a pay-per-view is only going to be 2.5 hours, you can get away with, promoting it as a 2-match show. Like look at Backlash 2004, perfect example. You had your two main events, the World Title match and the Intercontinental Championship. You had a good handicap match, and then you had a bunch of nothing matches, which wasn't really that big of a deal. But they weren't that long, and it saved time for the big matches that they were promoting. So there's my little side rant on pay-per-views and pay-per-view structure. I don't really know how that started, but I thought it was a good rant. So let's continue. So Johnny Nitro is basically making fun of Bischoff and Coach, and he says, well, what if Eugene wins? Because if Eugene wins, then Bischoff, you're going to look like a dick. And then Bischoff doesn't take too kindly to this, and he says, Johnny Nitro, you're going to be in one-on-one action against Eugene, and if you lose, you're going to hear what Donald Trump's apprentices hear. You're fired. And it's just, I know McMahon and Trump are buddies, but just hearing any sort of Trump reference on WWE and just knowing that Donald Trump was part of WrestleMania 23 and the Donald Trump impersonator was on that horrible Raw segment, it's so weird knowing. And the fact that Trump is in the fucking Hall of Fame, it's like the fucking president of the United States is being referenced. A future president of the United States is being referenced on Raw. Could you obviously it wouldn't make any sense, but what if in the Attitude Era they just made a Barack Obama reference? But yeah, so just Donald Trump references, oh god, it was so, and it also just it's not fun when you're living in the United States with Donald Trump as president, but we're not gonna get political. So let's go. Next match, Batista versus Shelton Benjamin. So on Batista's way to the ring, King notes that Batista has veins in his arms that are bigger than JR's actual arms. I thought that was a funny line. So Batista basically just beats the hell out of Benjamin the entire time. Benjamin eventually gets a comeback. He starts wailing on him. When he makes his comeback, Flair gets on the apron and Benjamin knocks him down. Batista hits a spine buster, and then Randy Orton comes down to ringside. Batista goes for the powerbomb. Benjamin counters. Orton gets on the apron and tries to cause some shenanigans, and Benjamin throws him off the apron, but then Batista hits a huge clothesline. It was actually kind of botched a little bit. Batista charged at him, but it was before Benjamin turned around, so Batista charged halfway through the ring, and then he just kind of stopped for a second, and then when Benjamin eventually made the full turn, he just kind of decked him with the clothesline. So Benjamin's down and out. Batista hits the powerbomb for the 1-2-3. The match was fine. It was a little better than your average Raw match, but it was pretty good. It was entertaining for what it was worth. And then after the match, Evolution beats Benjamin down 3-1. No one came to save him. Apparently, Shelton Benjamin, the super clean, squeaky clean, newly crowned babyface, doesn't have any friends. So that kind of sucks for him. Then we had a backstage segment with Benoit and Edge. Benoit and Edge are still really salty that they lost the World Tag Team titles last week. They both made smart-ass comments to each other. Benoit was like, now Eric Bischoff, that's a guy who should be hit with a spear. And then Edge was like, whoa, are you making a reference to how I speared you last week? It was an accident. I was apologizing all week. And then Edge is like, well, you know what? Bischoff would be one hell of a guy to tap out as the crippler crossface. And then Benoit was like, oh, what the fuck do you mean by that? So they both are going back and forth. And then Coach comes in and he's all smiles and he says, Edge has the night off, but Benoit is going to be in a handicap match against La Resistance. One thing I want to note about this is this was Benoit's first appearance on the show. Now, granted, he will have a big role in Bad Blood. He will have 2 matches. But in the very beginning of Raw, when, JR and King announce each other and they're like, oh, welcome to Albany, New York. This is Monday Night Raw. And what's some main events we have for you? It was Batista and Benjamin and Shawn Michaels and Randy Orton. Those were the main events. Benoit was an afterthought. And while I think his title reign was better than Eddie's, it's really funny. I think people look back on the fond memories, with fond memories about WrestleMania 20 and WrestleMania 30 about the title wins. Now, granted, Daniel Bryan's title win was cut short because of injury, but think about that month after WrestleMania 30, how Daniel Bryan was booked. That horrendous storyline with Kane. I mean, I thought the Kane Daniel Bryan match at Extreme Rules was a great match. I thought that was a really, really good match, but the storyline sucked dick. It was awful. It was absolutely terrible. And then you come here I don't think Benoit's storylines are all that bad. And it's more of just being booked as a complete afterthought. You're not the main focal point of the show. And you can argue the same thing happened to CM Punk. At least with CM Punk, he kind of had the treatment as if he was a superstar. It's just with CM Punk's title reign, that was more of they just wanted to push Cena as the main eventer. It's Punk still got a lot of time on Raw, and Benoit, hardly was ever advertised. You know what I mean? And while I still think Punk kind of got fucked with his title reign. He never really got to show who he was as a main eventer because they never gave him that shot. The same thing with Benoit here. They gave him the title reign at WrestleMania, and he was hot for the next month with Backlash. That was a great follow up. But then you cool down, and he has the match with Michaels in May, and then that snowballs into the finale of the Triple H Shawn Michaels feud. So he was kind of a pawn to create a bigger storyline that didn't even involve him. So just Benoit's whole role on this show is just, sometimes he just looks like a complete afterthought, and that's not the way to treat your world heavyweight champion. And he's going to be the world champion for the rest of the summer. He has the match with Triple H at Vengeance, and he's eventually going to drop it to Orton at SummerSlam, but still, and it's probably going to be ironic, he'll probably come back into the focal point when he's working with Triple H. So here's the parallel between Benoit and Triple H and CM Punk and Cena. You can kind of make that comparison there. CM Punk, he was, in the top spot on Raw when he was working with Cena. He main evented Night of Champions. That was, in 2012, what was the one pay-per-view that CM Punk main evented? He main evented Night of Champions, and was that it? I'm thinking off the top of my head. And he did main event Survivor Series, but that was with Cena. And he main evented Hell in a Cell, and that was with Ryback. So I'll give the Hell in a Cell, I'll throw them a bone with Hell in a Cell. But the only other times he main evented were with Cena. And again, I'm on another fucking rant. This is awful. Okay, so point is, Benoit was looked as a complete afterthought. That is the whole point of that rant. So I'm just making comparisons throughout the years because people glorify WWE for saying that, they put the title on all these, the smaller wrestlers, and it's not always about who they want. It's like, okay, yeah, that's true, but at the end of the day, sure, they'll give the fans who they want as champion, but then they're going to treat them like they're just any other dude on the roster. So then we had another backstage segment with Bischoff and Trish and Tomko. Bischoff says that Tyson Tomko will be facing Chris Jericho at Bad Blood. That's the first official announcement of the match coming this Sunday. And then Trish Stratus notes that because Lita beat Gail Kim, she should have the number one contenders match for the women's championship because Lita beat the number one contender, but Trish beat Lita. So technically, Trish beat the number one contender. Which, honestly, is fine logic with me. So eventually they're going to make the Fatal 4-Way. They didn't announce it here, but that was basically where they were going with it. And then all of a sudden, Kane barges into the office. He gets right in Tomko's face. They're just doing the nose-to-nose. And then Kane says, "We need to talk." And he kicks Tyson and Trish out, and he slams the door. So then we had Chris Jericho versus A-Train. So A-Train goes right after Jericho's ribs, which are all taped up because of the powerbomb that he suffered and the gorilla press he suffered from Tyson Tomko last week on Raw. Jericho tries to come back, but then he gets gorilla pressed by A-Train. A-Train goes for a boot, and he gets hung up on the top rope, and then Jericho drop kicks him out of the ring and hits him with a rope attack. A-Train eventually hits the derailer, but Jericho kicks out at 2, which surprised me. I thought that was going to be the end, and I thought another person was going to lose on their way to Bad Blood because they did it with Gail Kim and Benjamin. But Jericho goes for a backbreaker. A-Train goes for a backbreaker, and Jericho slid out and hit an enziguri. Jericho turns A-Train over into the walls of Jericho, and A-Train taps out. Again, basic Raw match, nothing special to it, but, nothing wrong with it. So then we had a SmackDown rebound, and this is good. Okay, I usually don't include the SmackDown rebounds in this, but I needed to include the SmackDown rebound because it illustrates the point I was making just a few minutes ago about, yeah, your favorite guy is the champion, but he's not in the main event because they were showing the replay of the Dudley Boys and Undertaker storyline, and that storyline fucking sucked, and the payoff to it was even worse. And JBL and Guerrero had a pretty good bull rope match, and Eddie Guerrero I don't think he was even in the SmackDown rebound. JBL announced the match, and then the rest of it was devoted to Undertaker and the Dudley Boys. So again, the title changed hands on that pay-per-view, and it wasn't even the main event. It was Undertaker and Dudley Boys, and it's not like that had such a great payoff that it had to be in the main event. I swear, they could have done the cement mixer thing. If they really wanted to do it, they could have done it in the middle of the show, semi-main event, still would have had a good impact. Now, granted, you could say, oh, yeah, well, someone died, or we're going to act like... So, I guess they had to end with it, but at the end of the day, it probably would have been better just to cut it, because who the fuck actually believed that Undertaker would have killed Paul Bearer live on TV? The cat's out of the bag. It's 2004. Well, it was 2004. So then we had a Triple H promo. Now, here's the thing about Triple H promos. I don't know what got into him over the past couple of years where he thought the best way to open up Raw is a 20-minute promo. Triple H has been cutting 3 to 5 minute promos, and they have been great. And this one might have been the best yet. Triple H says after his promo, the best part of this was he said after the promo, he's going to go up to his luxury box and watch Orton and HBK while he eats his food with his waitress and he drinks his champagne and all that shit. So Triple H claims he never lost a Hell in a Cell match, which again is bullshit. But the loophole is he was never pinned in a Hell in a Cell match. However, he has lost a Hell in a Cell match. Then Triple H says he has no remorse or conscience, and that is the difference between him and Shawn Michaels, and that's why he's going to win. And then he drops a awesome Rolling Stones reference and says even Jesus Christ had a moment of doubt and pain. And he says it doesn't matter if he goes to heaven or not because he and Shawn Michaels are going straight to hell, which I thought was a great ending line. Triple H dropped the mic and he got out of there and went back to the luxury box. And then on his way to the luxury box, they showed a video package of Triple H beating the hell out of Shawn Michaels, and then eventually he gets to the luxury box, and then the waitress like feeds him grapes off the vine and stuff like that, and then they show a video package of Shawn Michaels beating up Triple H. Now, one thing to note about this, and it's just a matter of heel and babyface. Triple H had significantly more offense than Shawn Michaels, and I mean that just goes to Shawn Michaels' style of, Shawn Michaels was a great babyface in peril. He got beat up most of the match and then made a comeback. That was Shawn Michaels' MO. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was funny to see, Triple H get so much more offense against Shawn Michaels. So then we had Chris Benoit versus La Resistance. Okay, at no point have I ever thought I would say Chris Benoit had the worst match on a show, but Chris Benoit had the worst fucking match on a show. This was boring as all hell. Like, again, obviously, I mean, it makes sense that Chris Benoit is going to be double teamed by the World Tag Team Champions, but he's also the World Heavyweight Champion, so you think he would have at least some sort of fire in him. Now, granted, if the Tag Team Champions were being beaten 2-on-1, that would make them look bad, so you were fucked either way, because you're either going to make your World Champion look like a jabroni or your Tag Team Champs look like a jabroni. Now, granted, there's a hierarchy there, but in this case, I guess it would make more sense for Benoit to look like the loser because it is a 2-on-1 advantage, so at least he has that going for him. So Sylvain and Grenier and Rob Conway, they work them both over, and then King mentioned that Kane's world title win would be a reign of terror if he were to win the world championship at Bad Blood, which I thought was hilarious considering that we had just gotten out of the Triple H reign of terror, but that's neither here nor there. And then King also mentioned something really funny here. During this match, he said if Kane won the world championship and Lita won the women's championship, they would be champions together, playing into the Kane and Lita storyline. But the funny thing is, the match hadn't been announced yet, so King obviously fucked up and dropped the ball a little too early. And he kind of when they were running through all the matches, he tried to save himself, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but I never got to elaborate. At Bad Blood, we'll have a fatal 4-way." So he saved himself, but he kind of dropped the ball a little too early. So eventually Kane just comes out. Obviously, Kane was really fucking bored of this match too, so he's like, I'm going to come in and just beat the hell out of everyone. So he comes at Benoit, and then Edge comes in to make the save, and then Bischoff says, hold on. Edge, if you want to wrestle, that's fine. It will be a handicap match. It will be La Resistance and Kane. That's one hell of a tag team right there, versus Benoit and Edge. So it kind of stays the same old. They just beat on Edge and Benoit a little bit more. Eventually, Benoit gets the hot tag and Kane gets the hot tag, so they kind of go at it. Kane goes for a chokeslam, Edge spears him, Benoit goes for the diving headbutt and hits it, but Kane no-sells it and sits right up. Benoit goes for the crossface, but Kane powers out of it and hits him with a chokeslam for the win. This match kind of just sucked. Then we had Johnny Nitro versus Eugene. This was really a nothing match in the terms of Eugene essentially squashed him. Johnny Nitro got in zero offense. But what was great about Johnny Nitro, and I totally forgot about this, his whole gimmick, obviously with the last name Nitro, he came out to the Nitro theme song. His Titantron was just Johnny Nitro, and basically they just took the WCW Nitro logo and just put Johnny on top of it. It was so hokey and so stupid. And then Eugene does his little spots. He does the airplane spin. He does the JYD headbutt and all that stuff. So Eugene hits a slam off the top for the win. This was just, I'm going to give it an NA. It was a squash match, essentially. Coach was out on commentary. Eugene tried to pick a fight with him, and then Coach acted all scared. So then we had a backstage segment with Lita. She's telling Matt Hardy that she's in the women's title match and she's going to have a chance to win the title. Kane shows up behind her and she's all scared. And he's like, I thought you said this was over. And Kane's like, I lied. And then that's just how it goes. That's how it ended. Oh, and then Kane mentioned that it was him who put Lita in the women's championship match because when she wins and when Kane wins, they'll both be champions together. So then we had our main event, Randy Orton versus Shawn Michaels. This was a very, very long main event. It probably lasted maybe 15 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. And that wasn't to say this match was bad. It just, they've had so many better matches. You know, they had a better match last year at Unforgiven, and then like the Survivor Series match was like miles ahead of this. Now, granted, Randy Orton was he's definitely a better wrestler in 2007 than he was in 2004, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. So Randy Orton makes his way to the ring. Evolution toasts Orton, and Flair was marking out for Orton's entrance. So Orton and Michaels go at it right away. Michaels hasn't even taken off his ring gear. He still has like his assless chaps on. So eventually HBK throws him out of the ring and, you know, rips off all of his entrance gear. So HBK starts off hot, and then Orton cuts him off with a boot in the corner and then hits a big lariat. HBK goes for a shoulder block into the corner, and he goes right into the post. Orton begins working over the shoulder, and then King said Orton will start at the trapezoid and then work to the fingertips, in reference to him working over Shawn Michaels' arm. So apparently he was going to start at the trapezoid muscle. I don't know what that is. So HBK tosses Orton outside the ring, and then Orton takes an awful fall. This fucking sucked, dude. He threw him, and then Orton got a lot of hang time, but he came down like hip first on the apron. It looked terrible. So Orton goes for a drop kick, but he misses. HBK uses the figure four and begins working over the leg. Orton gets thrown out of the ring, and HBK hits a crossbody on him. And then Triple H sends Batista down to ringside, and then we get a commercial break. A commercial break in the main event. That always sucks. So Orton throws HBK outside the ring, where Batista throws him into the post, and then HBK cuts himself open. You know, I thought about this, and I was like, really, you're going to cut yourself open for a Hell in a Cell match? Really? Why? Like, just blow your load right now. Like, I mean, I guess you could say, oh, it's a teaser, like both men are going to be bloody, but it's like, really, why would you have Shawn Michaels bleed on Raw intentionally? It wasn't like this was an accident. It definitely was an intentional blade job. Why would you do that a week before a Hell in a Cell match? I feel like if you want to get people riled up to see a bloody, just disgusting, brutal brawl, you wouldn't just have Shawn Michaels be all bloodied up from a ring post shot. You'd want the blood to come from a cage. Like last year for Bad Blood, when they had Nash and Triple H, they did the thing where they lowered Hell in a Cell and they had Triple H and Mick Foley go at it. And I thought that was good because that was a teaser trailer, because it's like, here's Triple H and the referee, but you want to see Triple H and Kevin Nash go at it. So that was a good build. I thought Shawn Michaels bleeding, to me, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, that's not really how you build up a bloody match. You don't have the guy bleed a couple days before the show in a regular match. You know, it kind of makes Hell in a Cell seem less scary when a ring post can do exactly what Hell in a Cell can do. So HBK is knocked down and he's all bloody. He nips up and he beats the hell out of Orton. He hits the elbow and then goes for the super kick, but Batista cuts him off. So this is the DQ. After that long-ass match, we have a DQ finish, which fucking sucks. So then HBK just goes wild. He super kicks Orton, super kicks Batista, and then he grabs a chair and just wails the hell out of both of them. He looks up to Triple H, who's in the box, and he says, I'm coming after you. He hops the guardrail and he comes up. He's heading for the box. Flair's going nuts. He rips off his jacket, and then he comes down the stairs and he meets Michaels, and Michaels is having none of it. He just punches him, throws him out, and Triple H pulls him up into his luxury box, and they're both just going at it. The waitress is standing there like this is totally normal. Like, this is totally normal behavior in Triple H's luxury box. So JR is saying everything's going to end Sunday, so tune into the pay-per-view. And that's how Raw went off the air. And overall, it was a pretty good show, much better than last week. And, you know, aside from my complaints with how they're booking Benoit, Raw's been a lot better, and it's proving to be a lot more consistent than it was in 2003. Well, I mean, 2003 consistently sucked. This is consistently good. So my name is Jericholic8704, and I will see all of you guys later.